What's going on, guys? Today we are back with another video. Today is all about jig fishing, and specifically jig and minnow or jig and live bait fishing for spring walleyes. We get asked a ton of questions about a whole bunch of different stuff on this channel. Some of it is complicated side imaging stuff. Other parts are very simple things like jig cadences. And jig cadence, how you fish a jig, how you're fishing a jig, when you're keeping your line tight, all that stuff has a ton to do with how many fish you're gonna catch, how many bites you're gonna get, how many of those bites you're gonna feel through the course of a day and through the season. So today's video is all about jig cadence, jig rods, fishing jigs early season for walleyes. Jigs are undoubtedly the #1 walleye catcher pretty much all spring, probably the entire year honestly, but definitely in the spring I catch a ton of fish on jigs up shallow, and today is all about how to catch fish up shallow on jig and minnow. And we are definitely gonna put the chesty on today and probably not run the big camera because it is an absolutely gorgeous day, and unfortunately it's a Saturday, which means the lake has like a million people. There's boats everywhere. I'm already looking out and there's several people fishing where I want to be fishing, so we're gonna have to get out there, find some fish, strap the chesty on, and go through a ton of jig cadence stuff and hopefully catch a whole bunch of walleyes. Stay tuned, let's get it going. Fish on, hooked up. Second cast of the day. I believe we got exactly what we are looking for. Oh yeah, look at that. Beautiful walleye there. Just a little jig up in the weeds, right on the edge of that stuff. Too cool. I absolutely love fishing super clear water just for that reason right there. Look at that surly. Nice walleye there, surly. Oh yeah, there's your perfect eater size walleye right there. Super light jig, way up in the weeds. Beautiful fish right there. Go ahead and let him go. Good start to the day. See you later, dude. Nice bite. Fish on, feels like a good one. They are too much fun to catch on this rod. If you're fishing for a ton of these, I don't know, 15 to 20 inch fish, this Elliott rod, 7-foot light fast, is just too much fun to fish. Unbelievably sensitive, unbelievably light. It's got plenty of power to land plenty of these guys right here. Look at that, beautiful northern Wisconsin walleye right there. It's about a 19-inch fish. Pop them off. Beautiful, beautiful day catching spring walleyes. Too cool. Let them go. See you later, dude. Fish on. Feels like a good one. He absolutely smoked it. Oh yeah, nice walleye here. Very nice walleye. Look at that thing down there. You can basically see the fish down there if you get right on top of them. Gotta play this one off. There's a boat driving by. But look at that thing down there. Too cool. Things are way up shallow, inside weed edges, sunning themselves, soaking up the heat. All right, this boat's kind of by us now. Come here, buddy. Yeah. Look at that, beautiful Northwoods walleye right there. That one just absolutely throttled it. A little 1/8 ounce jig, smoked it. Look at that. Beautiful, beautiful fish. Let him go. All right, how do you fish the jig in a minnow? You know, it seems like a very simple process, but really over the course of a day, over the course of a season, you know, doing it right, having the right cadence, keeping your line tight, knowing when to do all that stuff, translates to getting more bites, feeling more bites, and ultimately getting more fish in the boat. So it's really not that complicated once you get the pattern down or the cadence down. And you can kind of vary how hard and how soft a lot of this is, but basically the premise of anywhere you're gonna be jigging walleyes in the spring with live bait is you're letting that bait hit bottom, and you're doing a pull up like this, right? And you're leaving your rod high, right? Until the bait hit bottom. So it's on the bottom again. I'm just gonna pull it up like that, and I'm hanging my rod there, boom, on the bottom. Pull it up, keep the line tight, hit bottom. And a lot of times you might not feel bottom when you're fishing a jig this light in like sand or maybe weeds, some kind of soft bottom. But basically you can pull it up and you're watching your line, and your line is very tight as that jig's falling. When it hits the bottom, your line's gonna bow out, letting you know you're on the bottom, right? So it's super simple. Pull up, wait till it hits bottom, boom. Now most of your bites are gonna come, you're gonna pull up on that, and the bait's gonna be falling, and you're gonna feel the line jump. Dunk, that classic walleye jig knock, the feeling that all of us love so much. And that's why you wanna keep that tight line on the fall. Imagine that bait pendulum up quick, hang in there, and then slowly falling down, right? You get very few bites when you're actually pulling the jig, almost none pretty much. Pull the jig up, pendulum's down, that's when the fish bites it. And the only other way they kind of bite it a lot of times is sometimes on a neutral or negative bite, or when the water is very cold, they'll eat it right off the bottom. So one thing I don't like to do is start my jig stroke off from slack and just like super tight and super quick like that, right? Because a lot of times if those fish pick it up off the bottom, what you're gonna have happen is you're not gonna feel that bite until you pick up on the rod, right? So I always like to start my jig stroke off with a tight line and kind of go slow, and then you can speed it up, right? Just to make sure that if a fish is on there, you can tell he's on there before you put a lot of pressure pulling on there, and likely you're gonna put so much pressure on there, it's not gonna hook the fish, and the fish is just gonna drop it, right? Unless you can somehow hook them quick enough. But basically you wanna start that jig stroke off slow, and then just kind of pop it like that, or at least start it out with a tight line. Pop it like that, right? And in clear water, I definitely like to get kind of a little bit poppier like this, about like that. Sometimes I'll do kind of like this double pop like that. Double pop, let it hit bottom. Double pop, let it hit bottom. And that's kind of the deal. They like that pop in clear water for sure. If you're fishing stained water, I might do a lot more, just kind of your gradual pick up, fall, pick up, fall. Pretty simple there. But those are kind of the two cadences I fish a lot. The important things of this is that you're keeping a tight line, you're keeping your rod high when the bait's falling. One of the biggest mistakes you see guys make is when they jig like this, right? Pick it up, drop it down. And especially in the spring, when we're fishing very shallow, right? Like let's say we're in 5, 6, 7 feet of water. Another thing I see guys do a lot is they want to do this jig stroke that looks like this. You know, that's like 6 foot lift of the rod, right? 7 foot rod, and you're pulling it like this. That jig's coming like, you know, 3/4 of the way up to the water column in 6 feet of water, and then falling back down very quickly. And that does not look natural when you got that bait coming that far up and that far down over and over and over. So, you know, when you're fishing this shallow in the spring, you know, really all you have to do is about something like that right there. Super simple. Keep that line tight. The only time you're reeling is after that bait hits bottom, really. So I'm popping it up, wait until it hits bottom, boom, on bottom. Just pick up about 1 foot or 2 of slack to make sure I can pull it up again, and that jig's just slowly hopping back to me, you know, the whole way back to the boat. So pretty simple, and that's how I jig for walleyes, and it definitely does work. Fish on. Pop it real good, Surly. Hooked up. Looks like a nice walleye. Not a real big one, but oh yeah, nice little eater walleye here. Pop that jig as it was falling. Keeping that line tight, you can feel absolutely everything the way it happens like that. There we go. Grab him here. There. Beautiful northern Wisconsin eater right there. It's about a 16-incher. Too awesome. Pop that jig good. Get them popped off here. Still got the minnow. It's lovely. Beauty. It's the ones that everybody's out here fishing for. The pan frying size. All right, rod, reel, line, what are we doing here? Well, I love fishing with braid. You can do this really with anything. I think you can feel a bite better on braid for sure. Nobody's really gonna argue with that. And generally get a little bit better hook set on braid as well. And there's two rods in which I do all my jig and minnow stuff with now. One, which when I'm fishing very finessey stuff for like a lot of eater sized walleyes, I love this Elliott Rods 7 Light Fast Action. This is like just the ultimate finesse stick. It is absolutely feather light. So it's super fun to fish with, and you can feel just absolutely everything with this. And it does have the horsepower. It is beefy enough to do some damage on big fish as well, but it's a lot of fun. And if I was fishing for like 30-inch walleyes all day, this would not be the first rod I grabbed, but for a lot of your northern Wisconsin, northern Minnesota stuff, super awesome finesse walleye stick. And most of the time I'm doing this, I almost always got an 1/8 ounce on this rod, just because it is a light, very finessey rod. And I got that with a Pissy Fun 1000 Carbon X on there. Very small reel, it keeps the whole thing very light. And I run 10-pound braid down to a 8 or 10 or 12 pound lead, tied with a double uni knot, and then just my jig on the end. You know, 1/8 or 1/4 is pretty much the deal in the spring. I've been fishing pretty much all 1/8 this year, and you know, that's normally kind of the deal when you're fishing a lot of this less than 10-foot stuff with live bait on there. And that's the Kalen's Google Eye jig right there. It's got a little rattle in there, and I like the hook as well. So that's kind of set up. The other rod I fish a lot more if I'm fishing, you know, if I'm really gonna be covering a lot of water, I might be fishing that 1/4 ounce a little more, and I want to be making a lot farther casts, is the 7.3 medium light by Elliott Rods. I'll link both these down below, and I probably do a lot more fishing with that rod in particular. This one's a lot of fun for like close range pitching stuff like I'm doing today, but for most of my just big time covering water with the flats, that 7.3 medium light, it's a little longer. It's actually got a little softer tip in the 7.3, so you can really throw far. And another thing that real soft tip does that both these rods have is when you pick up with a jig, you want a little play in that tip so that fish, you know, can have some pressure on there, and you can tell that fish is there before the fish can tell you are there, right? So that's very important too. Boy, was that a soft pickup. But we got him. Doesn't feel like a real big one. Another nice walleye though. Jig fishing is too much fun, especially when they're feeling them pop it. That's why spring is such a great time. You get so many opportunities to catch fish on a jig. And when you're fishing up shallow, there's very few funner ways to do it than pitching around a whole bunch of cover, staring at those fish on the side imaging, and making them bite. Awesome. What do you think, Shirley? Is that a good one? Is that a cool fish? All right, I'm gonna let him go. See you later, dude. Well, that is gonna do it for today. Hopefully this video is beneficial for you guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed watching it. You know, like I said in the intro, we get asked a lot of questions about a lot of complex, you know, complicated side imaging stuff, and then we get asked a ton of questions about much simpler things like jig cadences, rigging, stuff like that. So, you know, jigs is obviously the #1 way that probably everybody catches a walleye all season long, wherever you go. So being able to, you know, figure out basically cadence-wise what you're doing, letting you know, figuring out when you're on bottom, letting you know that, you know, you got to keep a tight line on the fall. All those little tips go a long ways when it comes to catching walleyes, and they obviously work no matter where you are, and they're definitely working right now everywhere in walleye country. So I appreciate you guys watching. Hopefully this video is beneficial for you guys. Not sure what we're doing next. We got a little rainstorm coming in, and I got a pizza with my name all over it, so I'm getting out of here. If you're not yet, please subscribe. Stay tuned for more.